What's going on, my friends? My name's Corrupt, and it's time to talk about Zap Witches at Town Hall 11. We're going to explain everything that you need to know about using the Zap Witches, all the way from understanding the base identification and the step-by-step process into knowing what things that you can do to be flexible by adding different things like the wall wrecker, bowlers, and super archers. So if you guys enjoyed this style of content and want to see more here on the channel, make sure that you guys are subscribed and ringing the notification bell for more of my educational Clash of Clans content. But without further ado, let's get started. First and foremost, let's start off with the step-by-step process before moving on into the ways that you can be flexible with your army composition. First things first, let's go over the base identification to use this attack. Now, there are two main base layouts that you really want to consider: compact and more spread out. This is an example of a compartmentalized base, a compact base. This way we're able to see how we can actually send in our witches, which we want to create a funnel and then send the witches, heroes, and the golems into the base. This is going to provide more support for the actual push as we go in. Now, the opposite is true for a spread out base. A spread out base is a little bit better because it gives more breathing room for the witches, the skeletons, and the golems. They don't really have to break down a wall or anything, meaning that you have a lot more open space, and you could have your heroes kind of going in and spreading out a little bit. So you can have the warden going away from your queen and your king. You can have your king there creating a funnel and stuff like that. You can do that, but for the most part, you don't really have healers with this. So these bases work better to kind of spread them out in sort of a line. Other than that, though, I would try to send in your witches very similar to something at Town Hall 12 or 13 if you're hitting compact bases. Now, the key threats that you need to look for when using this are a couple things. These are going to range in where they're kind of placed. So on this base design here, those key threats are going to be the Inferno Towers, the Eagle Artillery, the Wizard Towers, and the Bomb Towers. These are all going to be key things that you want to try and take down as quickly as you can. In this base here, the Bomb Towers are a little bit further on the other end, meaning that we don't really need to worry about them. But for the Wizard Towers, we need to make sure that we are dealing with those. Other than that, that's very simple base identification. The other thing is just knowing where to use the lightning spells, where to use the earthquake, which we will be talking about very soon. And we also want to talk about their relation and what compartments that you can get to by using a jump spell in order to get in for the Eagle Artillery. This is going to depend on whether you're using the wall wrecker or the siege barrack. The wall wrecker should be used if the Eagle Artillery is in the core of the base, which typically you want to look if the town hall is either in the core or on the opposite side of your entry, or whether you are going to be using this on the opposite side to get the Eagle Artillery and have a lot of your witches right behind there pushing in. So that is the only really the only time that I would use it. Outside of this, the siege barrack is better because you can use it in conjunction with a jump spell to help you get in, have troops right behind there so you can get to key defenses like the Eagle Artillery. Those are going to be things that you want to try and consider when using this attack. Now that you know the base identification, let's talk about the lightning spells. Next up, we're going to be talking about the lightning spells. Now, before we actually talk about and show you the example of using the Zapquake, I want you guys to know the exact number of lightning spells that you need for each and every defense in the game. So on screen, you're going to see a chart for all of the defenses that you can use the Zapquake on. Most of the time, you will be using 4 lightnings on each of the multi-target infernos, which are going to be your key objectives to use the lightning spells on. But you also want to take a look at defenses around there and whatever you can get rid of, like an archer tower or a cannon or even a wizard tower. You want to think about those things when you're doing this. So this chart is going to help you find the right base in order to, or find the right defenses that you should use the lightning spell on. Now, like I mentioned before, you will be using this on the multi-infernos. So you want to try and get rid of defenses kind of around there. So you may want to try to spread out your lightning spells, and your earthquake will be able to weaken up that area and along with any other defenses within the radius. That way you're able to take them down pretty quickly. So now that you guys know exactly what you're going to be taking down, let's show you guys that example of using the lightning spells. you will be using about 4 of them on each of the Infernos. Take a look on how we're doing this. We're using it just to destroy the multi-Inferno, but using the Earthquake to also weaken defenses. Get some of that HP out of the way from them, and then also use the lightning to take care of other buildings in order to kind of create just a little bit more pathing. Now that you guys know how to use the lightning spells, use the Zapquake, let's show you guys how you guys can use and create a funnel using the witches. Next, we want to go ahead and talk about creating the funnel. Now, we've got a golem on either side. Now, this is going to be very important for you guys to understand. We are using the golems just to provide a tank for the witches creating the funnel. So we want to use 3 witches on both sides with a golem there to provide as a tank. Now in this case here, we're going to use 3 more, but we're also using another golem on this cannon. Now these golems are not going to last forever, which means that we want to make sure that we are creating a funnel on either side by clearing this area out here, or I guess I would say for the most part clearing out this area here, and doing the same thing on this side by clearing out this area. We can then allow the witches from here to move in along with some of the witches that are going in this way, and they can merge in with the rest of our army to push in. That is exactly what we're doing. We can always use the Siege Barrack as well to help create a funnel, but it's definitely better to have the witches there and the golems create a funnel for you. This is specifically on a compact base, which is something that most of you guys may see. So hopefully this kind of helps you guys understand it. But now let's go ahead and talk about how you guys can use the witches and sending in your heroes. Now that you guys know how you guys can create a funnel using the witches, it is now time to start sending in your attack. For the most part, this is going to determine on the variation. Remember that this could be using a wall wrecker or using a stone or a siege barrack, but in this case, we're going to show you guys an example of using a siege barrack. Now, there are multiple ways of using it with the siege barrack, whether this be using some regular wall breakers or super wall breakers, which usually super wall breakers are going to be more often used as they provide a little bit more value. Does this mean that you always have to use super wall breakers? No. You can always use regular wall breakers, or don't even use any super troops and just use the jump. It's definitely still very viable and it provides a lot of support. But for the most part, what you're doing is once these witches kind of start to converge in with the rest of your attack, you will be able to use that jump spell to get into a compartment like you see here. This compartment allows us to take down this eagle artillery from this compartment. Very simple stuff. So you just want to make sure that you are sending in your heroes once you know that you can get a clear funnel set. That means that the king is going to move in with the rest of the attack, follow the jump spell, along with the queen and the warden as they continue to push through. Now, this is going to be an example of dealing with an E-Drag CC. I know you guys a lot of the time see an Electro Dragon CC, so you want to use the Warren ability over the witches and the wizards. You also want to use a poison to take care of it, because it is going to be a very slow clan castle troop that basically won't be able to hit. It's a sitting duck, meaning that you will be able to easily take it down. Now, as you're pushing through, you've got the use of the Hog Riders. These Hog Riders are going to go all around the base, taking care of defenses in terms of where they are. So you see some of these hogs moving this direction and others moving in another. This way, you're providing support for your witches as they continue to push in. For the most part, though, take a look at all the witches that you have in the core. You even have a P.E.K.K.A in there. They are all tanking all for the witches. That way you're able to still move through the base and not falter. Now, of course, it is always nice to have flank witches. Like you see here, we've got some flank witches over here in order to just allow ourselves to continue to spawn skeletons and allow us to get a little bit more value from the outside. The other side, unfortunately, did fizzle out, but that doesn't really matter too much as you're able to continue to push through. Other than that, this is everything that you need to know about using the Zap Witches. Very simple, like I've mentioned before in a previous video of this, but this gives you a better explanation into how to deploy it, how you guys can do it. And just take a look at all of the witches that you still have remaining. This was absolutely smashed. All the skeletons all of the witches remaining, all heroes still up, and easily overwhelming the rest of this base, no matter if there are giant bombs and such like that. So this gives you guys a good idea of how to use it, and for the most part, let's give you guys some variations that you can also try out when using the Zap Mass Witch. Now that you know the step-by-step process, let's go ahead and break down the additions that you can add to be flexible with your army composition. First and foremost, let's go ahead and break down the use of the Wall Wrecker. This is one where you can add instead of the use of a Siege Barrack. Now, I would suggest using the Wall Wrecker if you do not have access to the Siege Barrack, or if you're seeing a lot of bases to where you can easily use flank witches and actually take down buildings from the outside. This is very evident in a base like this, where we're able to take down the multi-target infernos. And when we do this, the witches will have an easy time getting through the base here on this side, same thing over here, and even some that go into the core. So it's always going to be very beneficial when we have the heroes moving into the core of the base along with the Wall Wrecker. Now, I want to just quickly touch upon a lot more things that you can do when using the Wall Wrecker. Of course, first and foremost, we always want to break down for you guys exactly what's going through an entire attack. So this kind of gives you guys a good idea of using the lightning spells and just how to use this entire thing after we talked about the step-by-step process. So you'll see that we're using bowlers with this one as well. We're going to mention this one in a different section. That way we can really help you guys understand when is it a good time to use bowlers. But for the most part, notice what we're doing. We are protecting the Wall Wrecker. Well, for the most part, we would have been protecting the Wall Wrecker, but we are also allowing our heroes to move in, specifically being the Warden and the King. Now, even though the Queen moves away, we're going to easily be able to still work our way through. We've even got the use of Valkyries in the core of the base. Now, this is where you can use a plethora of different spells. You can use a Rage, you can use a heal spell, anything that will help your witches and your Valkyries and your heroes that are in the base. Those are going to be the good spells to use. So specifically being the heal and the rage are going to be your two best things to bring. For the most part though, that's really what you can kind of see within this variation. We got through the base using the Wall Wrecker for the most part, and we just allowed our witches on either side with the bowlers and the golems they're tanking to kind of move right in for the town hall. And that's exactly what you see in this example. So it's a very, very simple approach. Now, I know that this base design here had a lot of open walls, but try to take this with a grain of salt, as this is what the meta is in terms of competitive play. For those of you who are seeing more compact bases, the Wall Wrecker will work perfectly fine if there isn't a lot of jump value or double super wall breaker and a jump value that you can get. So that is a variation using the Wall Wrecker, but let's show you guys some different ones, adding an Ice Golem instead of just using 3 golems. Now we've got the use of the Ice Golem. Notice that we also have the Wall Wrecker here in this example. So this one's actually going to be a great example for players who are still a little bit more confused about hitting some compartmentalized bases. I know that this one isn't all the way compact, but for the most part it somewhat is. Now, using Ice Golems isn't super base dependent. It does come down to personal preference, but I would suggest using Ice Golems when you want the golems to basically be a tank for your witches. And what that means is you're going to be using the flank witches for the most part. You're not going to be sending them into the core at all. You're going to let your heroes go in the core, maybe with a couple golems going in, but for the most part, you want the golems to stay on the outside and use the Ice Golems as they push their way in. That way the death freeze from them is able to freeze up defenses that may harm the heroes. So you always want to make sure that you are doing that, whether you are bringing 1 Ice Golem or 2 Ice Golems. It really comes down to your personal preference. If you want to bring more witches, you can do that as well. Now, the thing that we're going to be seeing here is using the Earthquake in the middle of these 2 Infernos. That way, we're able to weaken them up equally and use the 4 lightning spells on either side to get rid of the Archer Tower and Wizard Tower. Very simple with the Inferno. Now, what we're doing from here after this is we are going to use a couple sneaky goblins, but we're going to use the golems on either side with a couple witches, and then the ice golems. So we have golems here creating or helping tank for the funneling witches, ice golems in there in order to help freeze up the clan castle troops if it gets taken down, which is a really interesting thing, as you will be able to sort of use that to take advantage of other troops, smaller troops within the poison. But as you're kind of pushing through, you'll see that what we've got here, we've got a lot of buildings that you can see from this that are reachable from the outside, no matter if we go in any direction. As long as we have the heroes to push through, everything else is reachable to the witches, and as long as we have a tank for them, that is perfectly fine. And that's exactly what you should try to do with this. For the most part, the only other spell that you will have is either a freeze or something else if you're not bringing 2 earthquake spells. This is just an example of using it without having to use 2 earthquakes. Another thing you may notice is the use of a Yeti. The Yeti is actually a very good clan castle troop to bring, as the Yeti mites provide a ton of support at Town Hall 11, so it's definitely worth doing at Town Hall 11, bringing it in, and you're going to provide just a little bit more value, especially when it takes damage. The Yeti mites will be able to go over to defenses and take them down. Other than this, though, this gives you guys another really nice addition that you can make upon your attack. We showed another one using the Wall Wrecker, which was a little bit surprising for me, and definitely using it with the Ice Golems is something that is definitely still very good. Hopefully this video finds you well. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this breakdown guide, and hopefully it helps you guys answer the key thing of how to use this. How do you get more 3 stars with it? Hopefully this helps you guys out a little bit more. Other than that though, guys, make sure that you guys are subscribed to the channel and ring the notification bell for more of my educational Clash of Clans content. Remember to also go ahead and follow me over on the social. Remember to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, and also remember to follow me on Twitch, and don't forget to join my community Discord server. The links to all of those are in the description. Along with that, make sure that you guys are using code CorruptYT in the Clash shop to save 10% off your purchase. Other than that though, guys, that's going to do it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys next time. Corrupt, signing out.